Other properties of the synapse. So first we'll enlist what are the properties of the synapse. We'll see the types of synaptic circuits that are there, and we'll differentiate between two important properties, occlusion and subliminal fringe. So why is understanding the synapse important? Properties of the synapse, why is it important? I'll give you some examples. Most of the times, the idea आपको होगा कि impulse always travels in one direction. So sensory information moves from receptors which are in the periphery to the central part of the body, that is the brain. So this flow of information from periphery to center is called as afferent in nature. Motor signals, on the other hand, they originate in the brain and they go to the effector organs in the periphery. So when we talk of movement of signals from center to periphery, it is efferent or efferent in nature. So these are the names that are there. So understanding the synapse helps us to appreciate why it is like this. Past experience, does it influence our day-to-day activities? So all forms of learning and memory happen through some changes in the synapses. So properties help us to understand how these things occur. And this is also a very common experience. Whenever we are in an emotionally overwhelming situation, we tend to think and overthink a lot, right? So why is that we cannot seemingly come out of all this deep thoughts and all of these things? So there are special type of circuits in and around the structures concerned with emotions which result in a looping of information, right? So types of circuits help us to appreciate why these things occur. These are few examples in our day-to-day lives. We'll see what are the properties. So the first property is law of forward conduction. Second property is the synaptic delay. Third property is convergence and divergence. Fourth and fifth ones are facilitation and inhibition. Sixth one, summation. So we've already talked about summation in the preceding class. Occlusion, subliminal fringe, the next set of properties. Habituation and sensitization, the other properties. And lastly, we have synaptic plasticity and after discharge. So these are the properties which are there in the synapse. We'll discuss one by one. So the first law states that information across the synapse always moves from presynaptic to postsynaptic neurons, and this is because of the nature of chemical transmission. So all the transmitters, neurotransmitters, they are there in the presynaptic neuron. The receptors are on the postsynaptic neuron. So it is but natural that they will flow only in one direction. So this law is also called as Bell-Megendis law. Now in the same process, if you recall the steps of synaptic transmission, each of the steps take a certain amount of time, right? As the impulse travels to the axon terminal, the voltage gated calcium channels, they open. So there is a time which is taken in that. Then this is followed by calcium influx and exocytosis of the transmitter. This also takes certain amount of time. The neurotransmitter then diffuses across the synaptic cleft, which is a 20 to 40 nanometer gap, and then it has to bind to the receptors. On binding to the receptors, there is a development of a local potential. So receptors can be inotropic or metabotropic. So try to understand that in all of these steps, time is taken. So this time as a total is called a synaptic delay. So time required for an impulse to travel across the synaptic cleft from the presynaptic to postsynaptic neuron is called a synaptic delay. So if in a neural pathway there is one particular synapse, so there is lesser delay. If there are more number of synapses, there is more delay. So longer the neural pathway, more the number of synapses in a pathway, more the time taken by the impulse to reach its target, because across each synapse there is a synaptic delay. The next property is the property of convergence and divergence. So for convergence and divergence to happen, there needs to be a special type of circuit. Let us first understand that the structure of the type of circuit. So this is an example of a converging circuit. Many number of neurons ending on one target neuron or effector neuron. So, and you have 3 synapses in this particular diagram. So, this is an example of converging circuit where information travels from many to one. The opposite of this is a diverging circuit. One particular neuron making way for numerous effector neurons, and you have synapses in each of this. So, this is an example of diverging circuit, and this property is called as divergence. Now, where do you find examples of this? The best example of a converging circuit is within the ventral motor neurons. So, in the ventral horn of the spinal cord, we have the anterior horn cell neurons, which are lower motor neurons. They come out from the spinal cord and reach the target muscle. Now, this set of neurons, they are under the influence of a lot of tracts or signals from the brain. So, lower motor neurons, they come out from the spinal cord. They are influenced by neural bundles, for example, the pyramidal tract or corticospinal tract, which control our voluntary activities. Then there is a set of neurons coming from the brain to the spinal cord, which regulates involuntary aspects of muscle activity, like maintenance of tone of the muscle, maintenance of posture, all of these things, right? They also receive some type of descending input from the cerebellum. So, ये एक example है where one particular neuron is receiving multiple inputs from the higher centers. So, this is an example of convergence. Converging circuit is very important for summation, spatial summation. We'll come to this in a bit. Next important property is facilitation, synaptic facilitation. So, this is the process by which transmission across a synapse is enhanced. So, facilitation literally means enhancing or increasing. So, by which the process by which the transmission across a synapse can be made better is called as facilitation. So, there are 2 main mechanisms which cause this. The first mechanism is where a separate neuron, a separate facilitatory neuron makes an exoexonic synapse with the presynaptic neuron in question. So, let us see this with this diagram. So, this is the synapse that you are concerned with, presynaptic neuron, synaptic cleft and the postsynaptic neuron. Here what you find, if you look at this particular neuron, this is the extra facilitatory neuron. So, axon terminal of this extra neuron, facilitatory neuron, it is terminating on the axon of the synapse in question, and here it is making some type of effect by which transmission or across this synapse which we are concerned with is enhanced or facilitated. What change happens? So, you can see here, so there is a usually, it's not in all cases, but mostly in this type of synaptic scenarios, the facilitatory neuron releases serotonin as the transmitter. Serotonin eventually within the presynaptic neuron, it increases cyclic AMP, and then it increases the opening of voltage gated calcium channels. So, all of this is happening here. So, release of serotonin across this particular synapse, this is the facilitatory neuron. Serotonin through downstream signaling, it increases the voltage gated calcium channel activity, which is present in all presynaptic terminals. So, if voltage gated calcium channel activity increases in the membrane, there will be more calcium influx and more exocytosis. So, as a stimulus or a change which started here, final result is across the synapse in question, there is a more transmission of signals or more exocytosis of transmitter. So, this is an example of facilitation. So, this is the first mechanism. The second mechanism is, let's say you are giving more than one stimuli, more than 2, 3, 4, n number of stimuli quickly. So, when we give more stimuli repeatedly in quick succession, so it enhances the depolarized state of the presynaptic neuron, right? So, if more, let's say this is not there. So, here let us say as an example, in quick succession 20, 30 or 40 impulses are being given. Now, when it is given in quick succession, before this voltage gated channels can close, the next impulse is there or next signal is there. So what happens as a result of this? The depolarized state of the presynaptic neuron increases. Voltage gated calcium channels spend more time in open state, permitting more calcium ions to move inside. And what happens? The rest of the story is same. If there is more calcium inside, there will be more exocytosis. So this type of activity or phenomena is called as post-tetanic potentiation. Tetany means what? You have read about tetany in the amphibian graphs also. Quickly, if we give stimulus, they add up. Their effects seem to add up. This is what tetany means. Here in the second mechanism, what we have discussed is, we are giving quick stimuli in quick succession, repeated stimuli in quick succession, and their effects seem to add up in the sense that the voltage gated calcium channels spend more time in open state. So this is a post-tetanic, and potentiation क्यों है? Because in the post-synaptic membrane, the net result is there is a better or increased activity. Potentiation का मतलब है increasing. So that's why the name post-tetanic potentiation. So we have seen there are two types of mechanisms which participate in facilitation. In one scenario, there can be an extra facilitatory neuron, and in the second scenario, there can be post-tetanic potentiation. Okay. Opposite one, the property of synaptic inhibition. So inhibition means the transmission across the synapse can be inhibited, and depending on the site where this inhibition is happening, we call them as presynaptic and postsynaptic. Now let's see this example. So this is the synapse in question, the one you see in purple color, right? So this is the presynaptic neuron, and this is the postsynaptic neuron, the cell body of the postsynaptic neuron where there is a synapse. Here you have an extra inhibitory neuron or a modulatory neuron which is inhibiting the presynaptic neuron itself, right? Because the presynaptic neuron is inhibited by the influence of this, in the synapse in question now there is no activity, right? So this is an example of presynaptic inhibition. If the inhibition happens on the postsynaptic neuron directly, so this will be postsynaptic inhibition. Now what are the mechanisms? Here also you have 2-3 types of mechanisms. First one is opening of some chloride channels in the presynaptic neuron, resulting in a hyperpolarized state of the presynaptic neuron. So if the presynaptic neuron is not depolarized, voltage gated calcium channels will not open, and the activity of the presynaptic neuron will be inhibited. So let's have this, this is the synapse in question, the purple and the orange one. Let's say as the effect of this particular extra or modulatory neuron, the presynaptic neuron has become hyperpolarized because of chloride influx, right? So once this neuron is hyperpolarized, calcium channels will not open here, and as a result of this, transmission across this synapse will not happen. Okay. Opposite one is opening of some voltage gated potassium channels in the presynaptic neuron. So if potassium channels open, potassium ions, which are positive ions, will escape from the cell to the outside, again resulting in a negativity inside the membrane. And the third mechanism, there can be a direct inhibition of transmitter release independent of the calcium influx status. So these are 3 possible mechanisms by which inhibition can be there, presynaptic inhibition. So see this example, here you have one excitatory neuron, right? This fires, the signal is transmitted across this. So here you have a diverging circuit. You have 3 sets of synapses, 1, 2 and 3. So here you have a release of transmitter, you can clearly see the activity here. In the second also there is an activity. But what has happened in the third? Here you have the extra neuron, inhibitory neuron, which is inhibited this particular terminal. So there is no release of transmitter here. So that's why there is no effect in the third scenario. So this is an example of presynaptic inhibition. Postsynaptic inhibitions happen when the presynaptic neuron in question itself releases inhibited transmitters, glycine, GABA, etc. So if synapse का जो presynaptic neuron है, that itself is inhibitory, so transmission across it will not happen. So this is what is called as the postsynaptic inhibition. A more interesting case is feedback inhibition or Rancho cell inhibition. What is that? Now, let's say in this particular diagram, what has happened here? So these are examples of spinal motor neurons. Spinal motor neurons, they give some branches from the axons. These axons make a synapse with the inhibitory neurons of the spinal cord itself. So spinal cord also has a lot of inhibitory interneurons. Later on in the unit, we'll see the importance of these inhibitory neurons. So a branch of the axon makes a synapse with the inhibitory interneuron. This becomes active, right? This is excited. So if this is excited or stimulated, इनके जो अपने axons हैं and synapses हैं, they inhibit the motor neurons in question. So what has happened here? There is an activity to start with in this particular cell. This excited the inhibitory loop, and as a consequence or effect, the cell itself was inhibited. So this is an example of feedback inhibition, and the cell in question is called as a Rancho cell. So this type of things are commonly seen in the spinal alpha motor neurons, the neurons that basically supply the muscles. So you have small circuits in the spinal cord which function on these lines, feedback inhibition. Moving on to summation. So summation, what was that, if you remember? When there are more than one stimuli, say 2 or more number of stimuli, when they are acting on a given neuron, their effects add up, or algebraically they undergo summation. So this is what is called as summation. Now the net effect of summation depends on the individual units. The individual activities, if that is an EPSP, if there are more number of EPSPs, the net effect will be more. If out of, say, as an example, if there are 10 sets of synapses, out of 10 synapses, if 7 or 8 are EPSPs and 2 are IPSPs, the net effect will usually be a positive or a depolarizing change, EPSP. And of course, it will also depend on the magnitude. If there are more number of IPSPs, the net effect will be towards the negative side or hyperpolarized. So temporal summation means when we are giving stimuli quickly, repeated stimuli in quick synapse succession, if it is given, the net effects will add up. And one important property or prerequisite here is the second or the subsequent stimuli should be given before the complete decay of the first one. So if the preceding stimuli has undergone its course and it has decayed, and then if we give a stimuli, it will not undergo summation. So for summation to happen, every succeeding stimuli should be given before the previous one completely decays or completes its full course, right? And the other one is spatial summation. Spatial summation happens when there are multiple inputs on a given neuron and they act simultaneously. So this is what is called as spatial summation. Let's say this example. So this is a given neuron, and you can see one synapse over here, right? So initially when we started with some excitatory activities or excitatory impulses, E1, when we gave the same stimuli after the decay of the first one, as you can see. So this was the first EPSP. It reached its course, but it did not touch the firing level, right? After it decayed, when it gave the second one, again it reached its course. Again it did not touch the firing level and it remained as such. Without the firing level being reached, जो post synaptic के affected neuron है, उसमें there will be no fresh action potential, right? Second scenario, what has happened, we have given the same stimuli, excitatory stimuli or EPSP, but this time we have given it in quick succession, meaning before the decay of the first stimuli, we gave the second one. And as a result, their effects added up. And what we see is they cross the threshold. Once the threshold of firing level is crossed, we can see our action potential being formed. And when an action potential is formed, it is only then when it will be transmitted forward in the next set of neuron, right? So this is an example of temporal summation. So prerequisite important kya tha ki they have to be given quickly before the decay of the preceding stimuli. Spatial summation. So spatial summation, you can see this example where the neuron remains the same, but this time in this diagram you see two particular synapses, E1 and E2. So if both are stimulated together, so their effects will add up. As you can see here, you can see action potential being formed. So this time is not the factor, it is the summation occurring in space. 2 points simultaneously activated and resulting in an action potential. In this scenario, you have one excitatory and one inhibitory impulse. That means one EPSP in this synapse, one IPSP in this synapse. So what do you see? Algebraic sum wise, they are mostly of equal magnitude. So you do not see any much significant or remarkable effect after the summation. Why? Because one was excitatory, one was inhibitory. And magnitude दोनों का almost बराबर था, तो you do not see much of an effect, right? So this is an example of spatial summation. Okay. The next aspect is occlusion and subliminal fringe. So two closely related sets of properties, but their effects are actually different. Now occlusion or subliminal fringe, they happen in circuits like this. So this is an example of synaptic circuit where you see certain number of postsynaptic neurons are shared, right? So if it happens that the net result is less than the sum of the individual stimulation of the presynaptic neurons, we call this occlusion. So what does it mean? So let's say if you stimulate neuron number 1 or neuron number A. So afferent neuron A makes synapse with 10 postsynaptic neurons. So if you stimulate neuron A, you get a result in 10 postsynaptic neurons here. Again, if I stimulate neuron B, the one in black, so this also makes synapses with 10 sets of neurons, right? So if I stimulate A, the result is seen in 10 neurons. If I stimulate B, the result is seen in 10 neurons again. So A plus B individually, if we stimulate and add up, the response is seen in 20 neurons, like that. But what has happened here actually is 5 neurons are shared between them. So if you stimulate A and B together, if you stimulate, the result is not 20 but it is 15. That means 5 stimuli were occluded. So this is the property of occlusion. So important prerequisite for this to happen is sharing of the postsynaptic neurons. So there is a concept of a discharge zone and a facilitated zone, right? So let's say this is inhibitory, this is an input or afferent neuron, and this terminates on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 sets of neurons here. So out of this ones in the middle that you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 neurons are considered to be in the discharge zone of the input neuron. What do you mean by discharge zone? So if there is an action potential here, the neurons in the discharge zone will respond by producing an action potential. It is very clear. But इसके बाहर जो neurons हैं, in the adjacent areas or the peripheral areas, here you do not see any action potential as such, but we see some type of minimal activity or sub-threshold activity, right? So hence the name facilitated zone. So we are not recording any discharges, impulses or action potentials here, the ones on the sides or peripheries, but we can record or observe some sub-threshold or subliminal changes. So this is what happens in the facilitated zone. So for occlusion to happen, there should be a overlap in the neurons of the discharge zone. Forget about the facilitated zone now. Discharge zone के जो neurons है, if they are overlapping or shared, so some A plus B will not be equal to 20, but A plus B will be equal to 15, right? Now what happens if the facilitated zone is shared, right? So if this zone is shared between two adjacent neurons, remember this is like, the area is actually in the form of a central field and a peripheral field. तो peripheral field में अगर एक overlap है facilitated zone में, the effect that we see is actually the reverse, subliminal fringe. So here what do you see? Both for neuron A and neuron B, the afferent neurons, you see that these two particular neurons are in the facilitated zone. तो डिस्चार्ज जोन में बी के डिस्चार्ज जोन में भी 5 न्यूरॉन्स हैं, ए के डिस्चार्ज जोन में भी देयर आर 5 न्यूरॉन्स. इफ यू स्टिमुलेट ए सेपरेटली यू गेट एक्टिविटी इन 5 न्यूरॉन्स. इफ यू स्टिमुलेट बी सेपरेटली वी गेट एन एक्टिविटी इन 5 न्यूरॉन्स. So A plus B individually if I stimulate we get an activity in 10. But if you stimulate A and B together, activity is seen in 12 now. So how does this happen? जो बीच के जो दो न्यूरॉन्स that you see here, these are in the not in the discharge zone but these are in the facilitated zone. Now facilitated zone में जो न्यूरॉन्स है, as I said, they are having subthreshold activity. But if you stimulate A and B together, तो दो सोर्सेस से सेम न्यूरॉन्स पे एक्टिविटी इज कमिंग. सो दिस न्यूरॉन्स इन द फैसिलिटेटेड जोन नाउ अंडरगो स्पेशियल समेशन. यू अंडरस्टैंड? स्पेशियल समेशन अभी हमने क्या देखा था कि एक साथ अगर टू और मोर देन न्यूरॉन्स दे कन्वर्ज ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर न्यूरॉन एंड इफ दे आर स्टिमुलेटेड टुगेदर द एक्टिविटी विल बी मोर, दे विल एड अप. स्पेशियल समेशन. तो फैसिलिटेटेड जोन में इनिशियली जो एक्टिविटी है इंडिविजुअली सब थ्रेशोल्ड लेवल पे है, बट बिकॉज आई एम स्टिमुलेटिंग ए एंड बी टुगेदर, सो फ्रॉम बोथ दिस सोर्सेस impulses are reaching the neurons in the facilitated zone. So now subthreshold will add up because of the property of spatial summation and they will cross the threshold now. So that's why when we stimulate it together we see an activity in 12, not in 10. So this is the opposite of occlusion, right? And this type of activities or effects, occlusion and subliminal fringe, these are seen in the spinal cord in plenty, right? We will come across this gradually. Okay, now why is it called as subliminal fringe? Subliminal का मतलब है subthreshold, right? And fringe का मतलब है periphery. So because this neurons in question, the facilitated neurons, they are in the peripheral aspect. क्योंकि central field में तो discharge zone था और उसके बाहर adjacent field में you had this facilitated zone. So because it was in the periphery, you have the name fringe. And क्योंकि इनमें पहले subthreshold activity था, so that's why they are called as subliminal fringe. So these two neurons in this example are in the subliminal fringe of neuron number A as well as neuron number B, and hence they undergo spatial summation when A and B are stimulated together, right? So this is a common question in exams also. You need to understand the difference. So occlusion में we saw that there is a sharing of the discharge zone. Subliminal fringe में there is a sharing of the facilitated zone. The same thing you can see here. A is discharge zone में 3 है, B के भी discharge zone में 3 है. But in between this there are 6 neurons in common. So this is the facilitated zone of both A and B. So when you stimulate it together, A plus B, resultant is actually 12. 3 plus 3, 6, and the 6 neurons here, all of them show some activity. Moving on to the next property, that is habituation. So habituation means there is a decrease in the response as a result of repeated stimulation. But this decrease in activity is not due to peripheral processes like muscle fatigue or receptor adaptation, right? Receptor adaptation का क्या example है? Suppose when you sit every day when you come to the lecture theatre, you sit on the bench. Initially when you sit, you can actually feel yourself sitting. You can appreciate the touch sensation, right? When you wear your clothes, you can feel the touch sensation, but after some time, you're not aware of it. Why? Because the receptors have become adapted. Receptors adaptation का मतलब है initially the receptors were producing many number of signals, but over time the signals have come down. So meaning receptor has got adapted. When I say habituation, habituation means the activity has decreased, but it is not due to receptor adaptation and not due to fatigue in the muscle. This is because of an effect in the brain itself, right? Synapses in the CNS. So examples of this, simplest form of learning. So habituation means as you become, say an example, if you become more familiar to the surroundings, your brain stops responding with that level of alertness or that level of activity. Example of habituation. Where if you have watch, if you have a clock in your hostels when you sleep, and initially you tend to hear ticking of the clock for some time, but after some time, as you gradually get into sleep, after some time you stop reacting to it, you seem not to listen to it, right? So this is an example where selective attention is being paid. So all scenarios where attention needs to be paid and where attention does not need to be paid, habituation becomes important, right? Habituation helps us develop the right behavior and grow the sense of familiarity. What are the causes of habituation? Exhaustion of transmitters to the synaptic knobs in the CNS, gradual inactivation of the calcium channel. So these things are common. Calcium channels are inactivated here, so calcium influx will not happen and the rest of the discharge will not happen. Sometimes the postsynaptic membrane can be refractory to the effect of the transmitter. So these are causes of habituation. The opposite of habituation is sensitization, right? So sensitization means there is an increase in the rate of impulses or firing in the postsynaptic neuron in response to repeated stimulation of the presynaptic neuron. So it is the opposite of habituation. And what is the cause? Presynaptic facilitation के जितने भी causes that you remember, mechanisms we have already discussed, all of them result in a sensitization, right? This is usually coupled with a painful stimulus. See, if you get injured somewhere, right? A part that is injured or inflamed, उस particular part पे, if say there is a touch now, the touch feels more painful. A stimulus which was not painful to begin with, but after the part has become injured or inflamed, अगर आपने touch किया उस जगह को, there is more pain. So this change of perception that is happening is an example of sensitization. The CNS, the synapses in the CNS, in the sensory tracts in the brain, they have become sensitized because of the painful stimulus. So this is a good thing, the protective mechanism. And how is this happening? This is happening by presynaptic facilitation in the synapses involved. So example of sensitization. Synaptic plasticity. So plasticity means the ability to mold or take shape. So plastic takes the shape of whichever container it is poured in, right? Similarly, our CNS can modify or adapt to the experiences that we are giving the brain on a day-to-day basis, right? So this is what you call as plasticity. So in our body, plasticity can happen at the level of the brain. We call this cortical plasticity. It can occur at the level of the tracts, neural tracts or bundles, and it can also happen individually at the level of the synapses, right? Now, synaptic plasticity can broadly be functional or structural, right? Post-tetanic potentiation. So you remember this? This was a mechanism we talked about in facilitation, right? So this is a functional change. There is no fresh structure or a new structure which is cropped up. So this is a functional change. कि बार-बार बहुत quick succession में when stimuli were given, the active state or depolarized state of the neuron increased, resulting in a enhanced active transmission across the synapse. Habituation, opposite effect, sensitization, again there is an increased activity. So these are examples of functional changes. Somewhere or the other way, we are modifying the transmission across the synapse. Structural changes can include protein synthesis in the dendrites. So now when there is new protein synthesis in the dendrites, then that becomes a structural change. These new proteins can participate in formation of new dendritic spines, right? This can participate in the form of new receptor proteins which can get inserted on the cell membrane of the postsynaptic neuron. Denaturation of the receptor proteins. If some of the receptor proteins get denatured, so the activity across that particular synapse will be less. And if the dendrites arborize more, if they keep on branching more and form newer connections or newer synapses, so this also will modify the activity, right? So if we, as and when we keep on giving experiences to our brain modifies, the CNS modifies all of these synapses. So this remarkable property is the basis of learning and memory, right? More number of times you use your synapses. So exam se pehle, why do we say that you should keep studying regularly and not on the last day? Because if you keep studying regularly, what will happen? You're using the same synapses over and over again and again. So this will eventually lead to a structural change in the synapses, right? And if you read it once, बहुत intense attention के साथ, if you're reading it once, there will be enhancement in the activity, but that will be a functional change, right? Once or twice. So there is a scientific basis to what all advice teachers give. And which do you think, functional and structural change में से, which one do you think contributes to long-term memory and which one to short-term memory? Structural change. So such structural change will result in a long-term memory and functional change will result in a short-term memory. So synaptic plasticity is basically the basis of our memory. And memory, in the simplest of words, it is a story which is stored in our synapses. Right? Okay. Moving on to the last property that is there, it is after discharge. So after discharge means after one particular input or a single input, the output of the system is continuous or sustained, right? So for after discharge to happen, the circuit type should be special. So this type of circuit, say what, if you look at this circuit carefully, so this was the input point. You see one neuron here, one synapse here. Again one synapse, but here what do you see? This gives a branch to this particular neuron. This neuron again feeds into both the preceding neurons. This neuron also has a feeder neuron like this, and activity keeps on circulating back. So this type of circuits are called as reverberating circuits. And output, if I record here, so direct jo aa raha tha, it keeps on circulating again and again. So this is one loop, this is the second loop, this is the third loop. So every time a signal passes through any of these loops, you get an output here, right? So single input leading to a sustained output in the form of repeated discharges. This is called as after discharge. And even after the initial stimulus, say even if you remove the input, the activity will still keep on circulating here. So what will happen if you remove the input? This particular part will be gone, but activity will keep on looping in the reverberating circuits and you can still record the output. So this is very important. After discharge can also be recorded after the cessation of the initial stimulus. Fine. Again an example of a reverberating circuit. So here you also find some synaptic divergence. If you look at this particular neuron, this neuron diverges into two, right? One of them goes to the synapse in question, the other one gives back it in the form of a feeder loop or a reverberating circuit. So this type of circuits are very common in the spinal cord, right? And apart from the spinal cord, other places where you see is between the thalamus and the cerebral cortex. There are a lot of reverberating circuits resulting in an activity to and fro, thalamus and cortex, which is maintaining our wakeful state, right? So the neural basis of our wakefulness is in the form of structure we call as reticular activating system of the brain stem. Reticular activating system का एक बहुत important component passes to the thalamus. Thalamus and cerebral cortex के layers के बीच में there is a rapid to and fro activity in the form of reverberating circuits. It is also seen in cerebellum and it is equally seen in limbic system. Limbic system is a network of structures present in around the brainstem, जिसमें कुछ हिस्सा thalamus का है, कुछ hypothalamus का, and some other structures, nuclei like amygdala and others. So this particular circuit is concerned with generation of emotions. Here also we find lot of reverberating circuits. So that's why in emotionally charged situations, we tend to keep on getting engrossed in thoughts. It is sometimes difficult to come out of overthinking, right? Because some of the circuits in our brain, some of the circuits around the limbic system, there some type of reverberating circuit got established and after discharge keeps on happening, right? So now you know why this happens in our day-to-day practice. So I think this completes our properties of synapses. Can anyone just name the properties? One-way conduction, then synaptic delay, right? Then facilitation inhibition, yes. Right, convergence, divergence, good. Right. Then occlusion and subliminal fringe and habituation sensitization, synaptic plasticity and after discharge, right? Alright, so next class we'll talk about bits and pieces of the spinal cord and we'll talk about receptors. If there is time, we'll talk about receptors also. Thank you.